Welcome back to another episode of How to Beeple. My name is Hafid, and this is a series previously recorded in Spanish, but I took a look at my analytics today, and it makes much more sense to provide this video recorded in English for all of my subscribers. In this series, we basically take a look at the works of Mike Winkelmann, aka Beeple, that he has provided for us with the CC attribution, meaning that you can use his work for free. He provided the full Cinema 4D projects for all of these animations that he has created since 2011. And the animation that we're looking at right now is titled Quartz and was released in August of 2011. So it's one of the pretty early ones. And as you can see, it's pretty simple. He's using a sketch tune material effect on Cinema 4D, which by the way, he wasn't using any external renders. It was just like the native render of Cinema 4D, and this is what he created basically. Taking a look at the project inside of Cinema 4D, here we can see that it's not too complicated. Per the name chords, we see some splines. I know we're driving some sweep nerves, but also we have a couple of cloners that are basically what it's getting animated through the splines. I believe that he's using the same spline for all of these animation, all of these chords, and for the camera itself, if we take a look at it, it might seem that is basically that same spline being utilized, but he actually, if we look at the time frame, he actually keyframed the animation just so when we go into the camera, it seems that it's always looking at the animation itself. If those keyframes were off, if I delete those keyframes on the camera, we're gonna be able to see that at certain points the camera is just gonna point straight into the abyss. So he just manually keyframed the position and the rotation, so it's always or mostly always looking at the shape itself, at the animation. Alright, so the first thing that we have to create is the path, the spline for our animation to just follow along. And there are actually 3 ways that I'm going to show you how you can create a spline for this project or any other project. The first way to do this is just to grab your spline pen, go to the top view, and just create a shape. Just make a shape with the Bezier curves, I think that's what you call it, and just make something simple. You know, something that curves like this, maybe over here. And then you're going to connect it, and then from there you can go back to your perspective view, and from here you can select those individual points and I don't know, you drag them up. Maybe this one will drag it down, this one down, maybe this one to the left, this one to the right, and maybe even this one, something like that. So this is one way. You can of course go to your front view and make sure that nothing is like flat on the plane. As you can see, we can still move these points, probably this one as well. But if you want it to be flat, I don't know, simulate a roller coaster, that is up to you. But this is how you do it free-handed. The second way you can do this is on the same spline pan. If you hold it, we're gonna use the circle, set it up on the X, Z plane, and then check on ellipse. You go back to our top view, and from here I'll just change the radius. One of them just be longer than the other, so let's say 500. And if you see that you need more points, just go to the intermediate points. I like to keep it on uniform, and then from there just set up the amount until I see that it's, yeah, like right there on 28, that is getting pretty smooth. We can go back to our perspective, and for this method you can actually just use deformers. You can obviously have the circle selected and then go to your deformers, hold shift. Let's say I'm gonna use bend, but I don't know if it's just like Cinema 4D R23, but it's automatically going to fit the deformer to my parents. So as you can see now, my deformer is flat because the circle is just on a flat plane. And if I go to my deformer and then I try to change the strength, it's not going to do what I want it to do. So I'm just going to drag the deformer by itself to keep like its original shape. And then from here, see what change is going to do to the curve, and then add it back again as a child of the circle. Now you're gonna want to rotate the deformer just so we can get start getting some of that deformation into the shape itself. You can make the deformer itself smaller, move it around, just to change where it's going to affect it. Maybe move it back where it was big. Yeah. And using this method, you can actually just like stack the formers until you get a path that you're happy with. I'm gonna drag this twist. probably make it a lot bigger and then just twist my shape like that. Negative angle, yep. The good thing about this method is that your line is going to be pretty smooth. I think the curves are pretty smooth if that's what you're going for, and you just cannot get it manually. You can obviously go to the circle, make it editable, and then select those points and pretty much do the same thing. Just play around with them, drag them down like that. I don't know, just make a shape, go out of it, and as you can see, it changes, but it also keeps that smooth, smooth spline. And then the last thing, if you're feeling pretty lazy, or if you are in a rush, or you just want to create something random, let the computer do the work itself, we're gonna go ahead and grab a null. And then on this null, we're actually gonna add a vibration tag, and we're going to activate the position. So let me say 1,000 on the X, 1,000 on the Y, 1,000 on the Z. Go ahead and increase the time frame. I'll put it on 900 per se. And this is just going to create a random path that we can then trace out. And if it's going a little bit too fast, you can just decrease the frequency, let's say to like 0.5. Let's try that. Okay, that's a little bit smoother. And in order for us to see the path, we're gonna go ahead and have the null selected, go to mode graph, and holding down Alt, we're gonna select the tracer. And then if we go back and play it again, you can see that the tracer is tracing our moving null. And then whenever you have a path, let's say that we're gonna stop it right there. With the tracer selected, middle mouse button, I'm going to select everything under it and just go to current state to object. That's going to create the spline that we don't need the null nor the tag. And then from here, you're gonna notice that we get a copy of that simulation, but it's going to be open. You can easily just select the line itself and then just close it. But you're gonna notice that we have this very sharp edge. There's no curve in this. Whenever you select close it just like went straight ahead and closed, no curves. So one thing that you can do is just select all the points, Control A, right click, and just go into soft interpolation. If you have a lot of those sharp edges, it's just going to smooth them out, but then you can just drag this individual point and just move it, and then probably this one as well. And then from here you can just tweak it out just to make sure that there's no like really sharp edges, because then the animation is gonna look, you're gonna be able to see where those sharp edges are in the animation. The next step is for us to create the elements. They're going to be animated. As you can see, he did a couple of variation. I think this is 1, 2, 3. You know, you can make a lot of variations depending on what you're going for, but basically this is just going to be a cylinder. And I'm going to show you quickly how to do that. And the modeling of these elements is going to be very simple. We're going to take this one as a reference, and you can already tell that he made it out of a cylinder, like I said. So I can just grab a cylinder, and just by looking at the reference, I can see that this might need 2 caps, 2 segments on the cap, so we can do this extrusion. Looking at the height segments though, he has about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, meaning that there will be 5 segments. And then for the rotational segments, he has a pentagon, so we're going to have this cylinder to be 5 segments, so it will give us that pentagon. We're going to make this editable, and then just go ahead and grab some of these lines, like this one, and then just move them closer to the cap. Grab the other ones, do pretty much the same thing, just so we can have, I'm looking at this section over here, just so we can have this this piece that we can just later make bigger. And yeah, I think that's probably a little bit too big. Make them smaller right there, and then make them bigger again. And probably this ones, just move them up a little more. Yeah, something like that. So as you can see, it's nothing too complicated. Then from here, you can just create different variations. Here are the other ones that he used. So you can spend a lot more time on just creating, but again, this is just a cylinder. Instead of a pentagon, I think this is, he's going to create different number of segments. And then I believe this is a 2-piece. Yeah. So from here, you can just play around with the shapes depending on what you want to create. You can obviously reuse these and just change the shape of them. Let's say that I want this one to be much smaller, much thinner, just so I can have two, actually even three here. And then for this one, you can even add a lot more detail if that's what you're going for. I can go ahead and select those polygons. Let's go like this. Maybe do like a inner extrusion. I don't know, something like that. And then extrude inside. You can probably grab the faces of this one. Yeah, grab that face. Maybe extrude those. I don't know. Let's make a cut. KL. Probably make a cut right there. Cut right here. And just do the same thing. UL. Select those. Select those. Let's do MW. MW. Inner extrude. MT. Outer extrude. But yeah, that is going to be up to you how much detail you want to give into those shapes. I personally won't do much detail on them, given that they're going to be moving pretty fast. So unless you have like a specific shot that you're looking for, that you want to see, I don't know, the side of it or all the details that you have created. As you can see, if you go into the camera, you don't see them for very long. Like they actually, if you make detail on them, you're not gonna be able to see them as much. So it's gonna depend up to you. You can obviously make some thinner ones, some bigger and thicker ones. But yeah, just play around with it. Okay, so now that we have our path and our pieces created, we're gonna start to clone them along our path, and you simply just select the piece itself, go into the cloner and just alt so you can make it a parent of it. You're gonna go ahead and select the mode to be object, just so we can put the object, in this case our path, and that's where it's going to use as a reference to clone our pieces. If you want to change the size of those pieces, just go to the transform tab, and let's say you want them to be half as big on the X, Y, and Z, just so they're a little bit smaller and they fit, actually maybe even like 0.2 on each axis, something like that, just because we're gonna have a couple of them. And then I can go back into the cloner, go into the object tab, and then increase the count for my pieces. Let's say something like 70. You might encounter this problem where the pieces are just not properly orientated even though you have align clone activated. So a simple fix for this is just go back into the transform tab and just change the angle. Just try which one works best, and it's usually going to be like a 90-degree change. So it might be on the P, on the H, on the B. I think it just depends on what the initial orientation of your object was. But you can just simply fix that just by going again in the transform and just changing that angle. And then from here you can see that now they follow the path correctly. And if I go back into the cloner, because some of these are just like colliding in front of each other, you can just, in the distribution of the cloner, you can just change it to step, and that will give it a different kind of distribution, but you can just play around with it depending on what you're going for. And then from there, you can just change the step instead of the count. And you can definitely change this clone to fill up the whole spline. That might be a look that you're going for, but if we're trying to replicate what he did, he left some spaces in between because he actually used a sweep object on the spline just to give it, let's take a look at it. As you can see, they have some space in between, and it has a tube going through that same spline. So let's try and replicate that. We can simply just go back and select the tracer, and with the tracer selected, just go to this generator sweep and make that a parent of the tracer. With the sweep selected still, let's go back to the spline pin and select an inside, and we're going to put this on the top of that child hierarchy just so we can utilize the sweep, and from here you can just change the radius and the sides, and this is just gonna be the look of your spline. As you can see, now we're getting that same look, and I think I'm gonna change the segments of the inside to 5 just to match the shape of this element that we created. And then from here, if you feel like you need more of those things being cloned, you can just easily go back to the cloner and then change the distribution to something that you like. Okay, so we're gonna call these chords, so this cloner and this sweep, we're gonna group it, and this is going to be chord number 1. Let's see, chord 1. And then from here, I'm going to take that same spline that I got from the sweep and then clone it outside just so we can use that as a reference for the next chord. And from here, I'm just going to unhide the other piece that we made, go back into the spline and just make a few changes, probably like rotate this a bit, not too much, just so it's like similar to the original one. You can even expand it just a little bit, and pretty much the same thing. I'm going to take my object, go into the cloner, object mode, and then put that spline into the object. And then from here, same thing, transform it. Let's set it on 0.2 by 0.2. I can already tell that it's not following the right orientation, so negative 90 might be. Yep. And back into the object tab, of course, we can change the count if that's what we're going for, but then we have this problem again. So go to the distribution step. Now let's try even. Okay, yeah, let's try even. Decrease that count a little bit more. I want to have a different kind of shape on this one. I'll hide the other chord just for now. Select that tracer again, go into the sweep, pretty much the same thing, make it apparent. Holding the sweep, actually, you can go to the spline pan and then hold shift to make the inside a child, so you don't have to like drag it back, but that's just like a quick shortcut if that's what you need. And then shape this maybe like that. And if I'm trying to do the same thing as the other one, I might want to match just the number of sides of our shape, just so it matches a little bit better, probably like 14. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna zoom out to see everything else, activate the first chord, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm liking this. It might be a little too busy, but I feel like that's gonna work fine. Once again, I can take the cloner, the sweep, group them up, and call this chord number 2. Unhide the third piece and then just repeat that process. Another thing that you can model is these sweeps that are basically just going to be accents of the whole shape. So if I hide, let's say if I hide the clones, here you can see that it's basically, again, the same spline, just changed up a bit its position, probably in scale, but we're only using this sweep. And then instead of cloning objects into it, this is just going to provide us just a little bit more accent, or in case you need to fill it up. I think that his curve is actually pretty simple. So I might not use as many with mine. In my case, I already have a lot going on, so I might just make one of those accents, possibly 2, maybe like a really thick one and then like a really thin one, just to give it, I don't know, just a little bit more of accent. But like I said, there's just already a lot going on, so I'm just gonna make those 2. And I can easily just open up the chord number 1, open up the suite, and just take out that tracer, clone it out with control, just so I can have the line itself, rotate it just a bit, scale it up, and then just add that sweep object like we said on the last one. Same thing with the inside, make a child of it. Oh, make a child of it. There we go. And then from here, just play around with the thickness. I think I'm liking that. And then instead of 6 sides, I'll probably do 5. And then for my thinner accent, I'm just going to duplicate this sweep, go back to the tracer, and then just rotate this, something like that, and then just make this one, I don't know, like way smaller, way thinner. Yeah, like 2. Yeah, 2 is fine. 2 is fine for me. And we are pretty much done with the modeling of all this. Now the next step is to just take a look at the animation. The animation is also pretty simple. I'm gonna take chord number 1 as an example, open it up, go to the cloner, and it's going to be as easy as animating this offset. As you can see, if I move it around, we're gonna have our animation just basically going from one side to the other, and according to the distribution, that's gonna just give you a different animation. Right now we have it on step, but we can change it to count if that is what you're going for. I wasn't a fan of these things like just like colliding with each other. That might be something that you're going for, but we're just gonna keep this one at step since we have the other ones on count. And what I'm gonna do is basically just go to the first frame of your animation, just do a keyframe of offset, and then go at the end, keyframe it again, and then just go all the way to 100 per se. And once you go back and play that, you can see that we have the animation of our objects. So from here, you can just play, let's say, with the rate. If you want them to go a little bit faster, maybe not that fast. And I don't think that this is the speed. I know it's like a 0 to 100, but I can go to like 82 and it's pretty slow, but then go to like 73 and it's like off. So this is not necessarily a slide of the speed. I don't really know how the rate is working, so just play around with something that you are liking. I probably stick with something like 25, maybe 26, 28. I like 28 better. Once you're satisfied with your animation, the very last thing that we have to create is just the camera. We have to animate that camera as well, because like I said at the beginning, it's not just like using the same path. We have to actually manually keyframe it just to make sure that the camera is always looking, or for the most part, looking at the animation of the chords. So we're just gonna grab a null, and then to this null we're gonna add a cinema 4D animation tag aligned to spline, and then you can use any of the splines that you created. Let's grab chord number 2, let's grab this one, and then from here with the null selected, I'm gonna go to the camera and then just hold shift to make it a child. As you can see, it's not animated, but if I go into the align to spline tag, playing around with this position, you can see that it's going to be following that. So the same thing that we did with the cloner, let's go to the first frame, position to 0, go to the last frame, and then position to 100. That's just going to make a full circuit into the position. We can now see that the camera is animated because we animated the position. But the thing that we have to change is that if I go quickly into the camera view, it's just a lot of craziness going on because the camera is just so close to the path, so close to the shapes, that we cannot even tell what's going on. So what we're gonna have to do is go back to the first frame, and from here we're gonna have to actually animate the camera keyframe by keyframe. Not necessarily a lot of keyframes, just enough so we can zoom out and see our shape and see actually our animation. Now just make sure that you don't have the spline align to spline tag activated, only the camera, because if I select the spline, you can see that we already have some keyframes activated. So let's only select the camera, and I'm going to zoom out just so we can get a better view of what's going on now. And I'm going to keyframe the first position, the first keyframe, sorry, and then the last, just so we can create that looping effect. And then from there I can go back to the first frame, play it a little bit. That's working a lot better. But then let's say I want a lot more movement. From here you can, just move it around, rotate it, get a different view, and then just make a keyframe. You can go back, play it again to see that movement. Yeah, that's working fine. You can let it run a little bit, and once it gets to a point where like right here, I want more things going on, I can move the camera back that way, even move it in this direction, zoom it in a bit more, another keyframe, go back, and then you just keep going until you have something that you are satisfied with. And there you have it. We created the chords, we animated them with the cloner, as well as animated the camera just to make sure that everything is in frame. It obviously doesn't look the same as the project, but you can definitely make something similar to this. Something more simple, you know, add those effects in case you want to add more stuff into it, but this is going to be completely up to you. This is something that I liked. I want to go for this, and then I'm just going to texture and render this in Octane. I'm not going to show you this. If you want to see the final animation for this though, go follow me on Instagram. That is Beeple, and that is an account that I have dedicated just to upload all of my animations that come out of the analysis, that come out of just looking at these projects, trying to understand how he created this, even though he used older versions of Cinema 4D, and how I can add, you know, my own elements, my own materials. But for now, this is everything. I'm surprised that it came out this way. I actually like it a lot. I can already think of some textures that I want to play around with it. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Let me know on Instagram if you have any questions. I'll put Beeple's website link in the description if you want to check that out. Check out the other projects. But that is everything for this tutorial / breakdown of the scene. My name is Hafid, and I'll see you on the next video.